Perfect. So we are the Lakewood United Coalition, and we work in partnership to build resilience and work with community members that empower and promote healthy living, diversity, and awareness centered in substance and prevention services, or substance use prevention services. I just want to say thanks for being here. Welcome. My name is Ryan Brown, and I am Executive Director of Link Northwest and a co-coordinator for the Lakewood United Coalition. And I want to take an opportunity just to go around our little meeting room here. Everyone's using her phone. Go around our meeting room here and introduce ourselves. So since you were the one recently moving, Erin, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Erin Moss. I am the coalition co-coordinator with Ryan Brown. And is that all you want me to say?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Scott?
Hello, I'm Scott Peacock. I'm superintendent of the Lakewood School District. Glad to be here.
Great. Annie?
Hi, I'm Annie. I am a prevention, education, and outreach coordinator for domestic violence services of Snohomish County.
Thanks for being here. Jessica?
I'm Jessica Ronhar with Youth Dynamics of Silly Valley.
Great. Thanks for being here. And then Tori Weber is on the call as well and had to step away for a phone call real quick. Tori is the student assistance professional with Lakewood Schools, serving in partnership with the coalition. We are with the agenda online. So for those of you that have access to that, feel free to click. And I see some of you are walking along with us here. The previous meeting was recorded and that link is in the agenda. So if you feel that you want to go back and take a look at what we have been up to and things that we discussed in that last meeting, feel free to jump on there. We had quite a few folks that were in attendance, both online and in person last time around. And it was a good meeting kind of to get us started down the road to coalition development. Erin, do you want to share a little bit more on our agenda about what Lakewood United is and just kind of talk through that?
I certainly can. You're usually better at that a little bit, but we are a substance use coalition in Lakewood, and we really exist to kind of look at where Lakewood's at and see how we can best support them and continue to help our youth to make healthy choices for themselves and see how we can support the community to better establish quality programs so that the youth can be more educated and make better choices. So that's kind of who we are and why we exist. Yeah. A part of Lakewood United are the coalition coordinators, Ryan and I. And we work alongside each other to just kind of work alongside the healthcare authority and manage the paperwork and the details part of it. But you guys are really core. And so everything we do is run through your decisions and the things that you are highlighting as important in our community. And so we're here to present you with the facts as we see it, and you are here to interpret those and support us in that. We do that alongside Tori, who is our student assistance professional who works with the students inside the schools and does some prevention work in there as well. We are currently working on getting some student members. Next week, Ryan and I will be meeting with Tori and some students and just pitching them the coalition, telling them who we are and what we do and how they can help us. We have a lot of diverse voices from all sorts of different community groups here on the meeting, and certainly last time. But we're missing the students' voice, and they're very important to us. And so we are excited to get some students on for our next meeting and let them know that we're here and we're listening, and have them give us their input and see what prevention efforts might work for them, what programming gets them excited, and what they see in their school and in their community groups. So, and a part of that is we're kind of working on. Brian, if you can get into that right now, or if there's something else that you want to say.
Sorry, Aaron, you cut out there, so I didn't really hear what you asked. Go ahead.
Oh, I said part of the student membership is working a little bit on like transportation and getting them here and around. And I didn't know if you wanted to go there now,
Oh,
or if
yeah.
there was something else that you wanted to share.
I'll share a little bit about development and relationships, and then we can come back to some of that strategy. So, so part of what Link Northwest is an agency, and what the coalition really roots in, is the idea that we are all asset builders, and that in the lives of students, we bring a level of care and respect and accountability that students really are longing for, and also thrive in. And so we strive to share power, to be a relationship program that serves students holistically, and not just from one angle or another. And so we are pushing that all of our coalition members, everybody that we would engage in the lives of students as partners, would be people that recognize that they have place, and that place is important in the lives of students, and that they can be uplifting, that they can elevate a student and amplify students in the way that they perceive themselves, the way they perceive their academics, the way they perceive the community, and their responsibility in all of those places. So we're just grateful to be able to come alongside our community, our community adults, our partners, and help them to see that it's not about fixing students. It's about becoming better versions of ourselves, so that we can help students become great versions of themselves as well. So one of the ways that we really are striving for that, and Tori is doing a great job of helping us identify student candidates, is that we'd like to see a student voice at the coalition meetings, and really bringing that sense of care to the room. Scott, without more of the Lakewood team on, it falls to you where this is about to go, and it wasn't intended that way. But one thing we're perceiving is how to address the student dynamic in the coalition, and like, do we have students come over here after school to participate? Do we have students stay on your properties and participate from a distance? Are we able to provide transportation to students that want to participate? And so those are some of the key dynamics that we're kind of chewing on and trying to discern through. How do we best engage students in the coalition? We certainly don't have any interest in trying to identify answers to those questions right now, but just those are things that we're kind of chewing on and discerning around. And we want to create a space where students have access to the coalition well, and that's the coalition can provide an equitable space for that. So anyway, just lots of things to consider there. But
Sure.
Aaron, does that
Brian,
get?
are you, just a quick question, are you thinking of, what age are you looking at for students to be in the coalition?
So we've got a meeting set next week with middle school students, and then we've got a second meeting set with high school students. So
Okay.
that kind of we're running the gamut.
Okay.
They're kind of a broad range of late elementary and then secondary students.
Okay.
So, and most of what that is, I think, when we've talked a little bit about this in house, but most of what that is like it's easy to look at figures and data, and like we can pull up the healthy use survey and chew on that all day long, but there's something about getting a student in the room and identifying, like, what do you feel? What do you experience when you walk through the halls? What do you experience when you're at after school events, when you're, hanging out with your friends on Friday evenings? What is a student experience like? And that anecdotal information can kind of help us in the how we process what we want to do and how we get really practical with coalition efforts. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Andrea Kingsford joining us here. Hi, Andrea. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
So anyway, that's kind of where we're at with student membership stuff. We're still trying to create a process for or not a process, but a kind of an understanding of what the needs are. Cause we also don't want to pull students out of classes for that work. So after school makes the most sense, but we want to make sure that if students do come after school, that they have a way to get home from that space. And if they
Sure.
have
Yeah.
transportation, what does that look like? So still trying to identify those things, but Tori's got a good panel for us though, of students we're going to meet with next week. So,
Good.
In terms of this is Jessica. In terms of transportation, depending on like when the timing is that we need to get kids home or whatever, we have youth dynamics vans that we can help with such things.
Oh, that would be amazing.
I'm going to revisit the topic with our transportation supervisor because we're trying to get, we were talking about getting activity buses set up. The only issue with it was that the last time we spoke a few weeks ago was that we weren't able to provide transportation until about 4:30 because of all the runs and not having extra drivers. So, yeah.
That could be feasible here because we could do an hour meeting and then have like a half-hour debrief with students.
Sure.
Yeah.
We could probably make that work. And then the question would be from there, like what, which property do they meet on? Do they come over here for the meeting after school and then head back over for the buses, or do they need to stay on the property, and who might supervise that over there? So anyway, lots of little moving pieces.
Yeah. Yeah.
Transportation is one of the big question marks. So I appreciate that, Scott. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to pause. Andrea, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hey everyone, I'm Andrea. Sorry about being late. I'm Andrea with Marysville Park Culture and Recreation.
Great. Thanks for being on. And then Tori, I recognize that I kind of introduced you. Do you want to say any more about yourself and what you do?
I actually think I missed my own introduction because Chris Jory was calling me about some things that have happened today. So I think I'm just going to give you the benefit of the doubt and say you did a great job.
I love it. It was the most incredible introduction I've ever given in my life. You're welcome.
I still haven't recovered yet. I'm
Yeah,
still getting tears out of my eyes.
Oh, see, I knew you did a great job, Ryan.
I love it. So part of the coalition, maybe the part of the coalition that we're working on right now, that's the most significant, is we have to build a strategic plan around kind of where we go with all of this work. And because we're brand new as a coalition, and because we're in our kind of our exploring year in our funding, Aaron and I have done a fair amount of work just kind of creating the framework and mapping out what that strategic plan could look like. But really the coalition as a body is what helps to set the tone for that work and helps to drive the strategic plan forward. And she and I are good at putting those pieces together, but it's really on us as a whole to do that work. Recognizing that, this is a small sample of our larger coalition body. We have kind of, I say I'm gonna bite my cheek there. Aaron has done an incredible job of digging through the Healthy Youth Survey and pulling out key markers and things that we believe are kind of our strategic focus points for the Lakewood School District and areas we want to help serve. And so I just kind of I'm going to lob that ball to you, Aaron, and will you share some of what you've gleaned and learned from the Healthy Youth Survey data and kind of where we're pointing our strategic plan?
Sure. And feel free to jump in anytime if there's stuff you want to add. So the Healthy Youth Survey, essentially, most of you guys have seen it, but it looks at the reported information from Lakewood students and compares it to school districts that are similar to us and compares it to the state. So what we're looking at is reported use rates, reported attitudes towards drugs, alcohol that Lakewood students are seeing, and then looking at how that compares to the state. So what we kind of put together, I put together kind of a abbreviated little data book that I think went out in the email And it just kind of shows a little bit about what we're seeing. We're seeing that one of the major things is that there's a lot of favorable attitudes towards drug use and towards drinking that are higher than the state. And the reports that we see from Lakewood, then there's not a lot of students that are reporting, but those who are reporting are pretty favorable. So they're saying like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, it's okay. It's not that, it's fine. And even saying, my parents think it's fine. Like, it's not a big deal. And that is around substance use in general. And so that is one big thing that we're looking to focus on. And then as part of our Healthcare Authority grant and all the work that we're doing, we are required to focus on marijuana use and opioid use. And so alongside vaping, alcohol, and other substances. And so we are looking at that as well. Our opioid use is pretty comparable to the state. It is not excessively high at all. Right now we're looking at 4% of 8th grade students reported that they've used painkillers and 10% of 10th grade students. And that's pretty similar to the state. So we aren't seeing spikes, which is good, but definitely still something that we want to keep lowered. We want that number obviously at 0. So that is something that we are going to be working towards as part of a coalition. And then with marijuana use as well, we're pretty close to the state. But we're still seeing that about 20% of Lakewood 10th grade students have used marijuana. And that is about, where am I at? That is 16% at the state. And so that's still a little bit higher and something that we want to be leaning on and focusing on. And they're also saying that their parents are finding that acceptable. We know that there's been a lot of changes in the state with legalizing marijuana and all those things. And so, but we want to make sure that the students are realizing that there is an age limit to that and that it's still not okay when you're in middle school and high school. So, and we're also seeing based on this data from the Healthy Youth Survey, and also based on data shared from Tori, our SAP, that there is still a lack of awareness around the fact that the tobacco age limit has changed in the school not in the school, in the state as well. So those are kind of our big things that we're looking at, the individual attitudes towards alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, as well as parent attitudes. Ryan, is there anything else that you want to share? Anything you want to go deeper on?
No, I don't, not from a data perspective. I think from a programmatic perspective, we're going to be looking at norming. What are the favorable norming things that we can do inside the community that help to kind of shift some of those values around specifically around marijuana and alcohol use, but also creating some space for lock boxes around prescription drugs and opioids, and take back days for prescription drugs and painkillers, those kinds of things. I think that it's funny because we're, as a coalition, we have to make decisions about what our evidence-based programming is going to look like, but they fund us in a way that kind of forces that line a little bit, like, here's the money to do the thing that we want you to do, but you have to tell us that you want to do it. It's kind of the way that it goes. But in a lot of ways that is helpful because it helps us to know exactly what we can afford and how we can be helpful. So another reason that this is that we find the need for student engagement in the coalition and why we're seeking that out is because there's a fair amount of anecdotal data that we're hearing from parents and that we anticipate from students that either is going to it's either going to confirm what we're hearing or it's going to accentuate what we're hearing. We're going to hear that it's, that's actually bigger, more of a problem than we realize. Or it's going to shoot it down and say, kids answered these questions in a way that maybe wasn't really, didn't inform the district. So I also value having educator input as well, and hearing from educators and administrators, because Patty, you're a great example of this. You have weekly engagement with students that are using or have used. There's stuff that you all are dealing with on a regular basis, and oftentimes that's information that the community doesn't hear about. It just kind of happens in the flow of regular work days. So being able to access y'all and know, what are you experiencing and how do you feel it in?
Yeah, I think there's a lot more vaping. We have kind of a vaping issue going on right now. And we basically know which kids are doing it. And Tori has been in contact with several of them. When we know that they are, we can link them up with Tori and also counsel them. And we have some kids that this doesn't sound very good, but for a couple of them, it's almost a reasonable option for them right now because they have got a lot of trauma in their life and it's their way of coping. And so we're working on them with them to try and find other ways for them to cope and deal with the stress instead of doing something that's harmful to their bodies. So, one of them is like, well, if I don't do this, I cut. So it's kind of like, okay, here we go. And Tori has done a really great job in working with the kids that are in that pattern. I guess it is a major pattern. But the 8th graders is a group that uses far more than the 6th or the 7th graders, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But we've got a group, of 7th graders that are pretty high risk right now. Probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 of them. And they follow, there's a lot of connection that some of them have with 8th graders. And so that's the link, they all live in the same housing area. So we're hearing a lot of things that are happening there. Also at the high school, it has come to our attention that there's a group of kids, and it also includes some of our 8th graders that are doing parties where they're unsupervised. There's a lot of drugs and alcohol and sex that are happening at those parties. And kids are just starting to talk about them, to me, at least. It just says all of a sudden come onto my radar. So it's good to see everybody. It's been a while since I've been able to participate. So thank you guys for, continuing this on in this vision. I really appreciate it. So that's kind of happening with us, right now, our current status.
Yeah. And I think, again, part of the challenge is knowing kind of where to target our information and how to be supportive and what enforcement looks like, what norms are. We just had a great conversation with Tori around discipline measures in the schools. Like, is there consistency from grade level to grade level? Are there reasons why, if there isn't inconsistency, that's taking place? And how do we address those things and acknowledge kind of those changes? And how do you create new norms in existing systems? So lots of things that we're working on. And again, because this is kind of the first year of funding, there's a certain acceleration, like we're just kind of slow speeding up and trying to figure out the best ways to be a long-term partner in the work. But it sounds like there are some key areas that we could really focus on to bring support to you all. So
as part, does the grant also include education for parents and guardians? So I think something like that would be a fantastic thing to sponsor, and to make that available for parents. I think we have all seen that commercial on TV about vaping, and the parents are like, my child doesn't vape, and all have their heads in a cloud. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
So I think it would be, I know our PTA, we don't really have one up and going right now. So I would definitely be interested in supporting something like that too, and helping, provide the facilities for you guys to, do some kind of presentation or bring speakers in or something like that. I think that would be a really beneficial time for parents too.
Yeah. Well, and especially in the environment that we're in now, I mean, to say that we're in a toxic stress kind of mode is an understatement anymore, right? And students feel it, children are feeling it, parents are feeling it, and to be able to create moments of both like relief, where come and have dinner and just hear from us. We've got some information, and you don't have to cook tonight. That's one aspect of that. But the other is like, these are how your kids are coping. These are ways that your kids are dealing with this stress, and it's not helpful or healthy. And if you really knew that this was going on, would you be okay with it? And oftentimes parents, they're not, but they don't recognize what they're sending their kids off to. So my niece just turned 13 this last week, and some things came out via text messages over the weekend. And my sister-in-law is like, what is going on that this is happening right now? And all parents are feeling that in these days. It's like, how is this happening in our life? So I think that's a great idea, Patty. And pardon me, Jessica, you guys hosted over in Arlington a Not in My House event a while back.
Yeah, we've done a couple of Not in My House. We've also done it in Darrington.
Yeah.
The health district actually took it over from us. Like they took all of our resources and did all the stuff so we could contact them and they could help with that. They do focus a little more on vaping than we had when we started. But it's a really great event, and the parents it's really informative.
Yeah, and I could see doing a Not in My House style event either on our property or over at one of the schools. Here's Amy.
I think we actually did it in Lakewood as well. The first one we did it in Lakewood. We did it in Arlington.
Okay. Well, yeah, Aaron.
Was that a couple years ago, Jessica?
Yeah, that was a few years ago. It was
Yeah.
with the Arlington Drug Awareness Coalition, because I'm the president for that one.
Right.
Anyway, I love that idea. I think, again, parent education and parent support are really key and critical as we go forward in this too. They're our first line partners, right? So
Yes.
we support them.
Yeah, the healthcare authority has some pretty kind of strict guidelines about like taking our steps and doing them correctly. And so I love all of these ideas. And we just kind of want to also say that like right now, mine and Ryan's job is to like give you guys the data so that we can make those choices and can choose what is going to be best in our community, what kind of programs. And so I love all of these ideas and I would love to use them, but also know that it's not Ryan and my decision as to what programs go forth. This is going to be like a group decision as to what we choose to do in Lakewood. So,
and that's actually a great segue. So we have an opportunity that was presented to us, and actually, Tori, if you're still available, will you share briefly about the cannabis webinar that you participated in, if you're there? She's not going to come back on. It was a perfect segue too. So Tori participated in a webinar, I believe it was last week or the week before last, that was focused on cannabis, and it was done out of Burlington. They are willing to offer that training to Lakewood as well. And there's some question about when and if we want to host something like that as a coalition. And so we wanted to bring that kind of to the table today and just say, do y'all feel like there's an interest or a need to create a training space around cannabis in our community?
So Ryan, can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So is the training for parents? Is it for staff? Is it for students and educational type?
I'm I'm
Who's
gonna
the
pull
folk?
up the thing right now so that I can answer those questions. Again, it was Tori that was on the training, so she's the one with the know-how. No, I'm not seeing a whole lot of additional data on the training itself. Tori was kind of the rock star with the information. It sounds like it was meant for parents and educators. And it's the training itself is called Cannabis 101. I think it's just a thorough exploration. Well, Tori's back. Tori.
I am.
Cannabis
Hi.
101.
So I believe you were talking about the one that we were trying to set up with Liz, correct?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So that is it can be a 1 hour to an hour and a half training provided by the Washington Poison Control Center. I don't know if I'm saying their title right. And they go over like accidental use statistics, and general information about cannabis, and then like legal status and things like that. I don't know that that's all the information you were looking for, but
Who's the training targeted for? Is it at parents and educators or?
I would say both. For somebody who is familiar with cannabis already, it's kind of like a refresher. But I do think, it's broad, how do I say this? It's like accessible enough for parents and educators while also like being specific enough that it's helpful information for both parents and educators.
And when you brought it to us, was the intent that we would do like a during the day training for parents, or what exactly were you hoping for that training?
So ultimately, I think that's up to the coalition, because it was originally a training that or a webinar that I wanted to attend. And so I was working with Liz to like find a way to set one up so I could attend it. Because the presenter is also fantastic. His name is Alex Saratsky. And because I wanted that information. And then the webinar came up through, I believe, Still Valley. Amy, I believe that was the ones you forwarded to us. And then I just realized it was a fantastic opportunity for the coalition to engage in. So during the day for parents, after school for parents and educators. From there, the audience or time is kind of up to you.
Gotcha. Aaron, do you want to weigh in at all?
I don't know what you're asking.
I don't know what I'm asking either. I guess I think so. Tori, you brought the desire for the training into the space. I think I don't disagree. I think having a cannabis training would be helpful. I wonder from an educator or from a parent and educator perspective, Patty, Amy, Scott, do you feel like we'd get attendance? Do you feel like people are longing for that kind of information, or?
I guess part of it I'm wondering about this. So this is it's provided by the Poison Control. Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if the provider would color the types of interest we might get for it. In other words, I'm not sure that people would see that and it would resonate as these are the experts on cannabis. You know what I mean? Even though they might very well be, it might color the way the response that we get. I'm not sure. I'm just thinking aloud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Patty, your thoughts?
I would hope parents would want to come to this. I know we do have parents that are very frustrated. They don't know, they know their kids are using, they don't know what to do with it. You know, they don't have the relationship with their kids and the, I guess in the, I don't want to say control, but kind of, you know, their parenting, the way that it is set up, that the kids don't honor what they're doing. And right now the kids are more into what their peers are doing and thinking, and that's more important to them than what their parents want them to do. So I know that there's a lot of need for parent support and education as to how to deal with their kids on this issue. So I appreciate what Scott said, though. You know, I think how we roll it out, if we do something like this, how we roll it out and advertise it is going to make a big difference.
Yeah, and I know Andrea is ready to speak too. I just want to piggyback on that just a tiny bit before I let you. Yeah, then I do wonder if this is maybe the right webinar, looking at information versus like poison control, accidental use, things like that. Andrea?
The only thing I was just going to jump in and say is the Marysville Coalition, a few years back, once upon a time, we had kind of parenting nights, and they were really well received and popular. And so we brought them back a few years ago now, where we did a series, and one was on drug usage and identifying drug usage and things, signs, and that type of thing. I mean, we had a whole series, so there were different topics for each one. The only thing that I would say taking away from that is we had planned for a larger discussion. So we had planned, we were in the MP auditorium, and you know, I'm here, and we put it out huge into the community. And realistically, what we had for each of the things were somewhere between 10 and maybe 20 people who arrived as participants. And then realistically, that format wasn't as ideal because those people had a lot of personal stories to share, or personal questions, or things that related to their life. And so that would, in a webinar, I don't know, webinar, but that would be my only experience with that, is that they really needed more of a small format where they could ask questions that were pertinent and relative to their current experiences.
Yeah, it feels like, especially if you're coming to a webinar on this, you're probably coming with some experience in your household, and you're probably coming with some vulnerability that you don't necessarily want 300 people to hear about. So there's something about that small hands-on kind of dialogue that feels really right. I appreciate that perspective. Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah.
Amy, do you want to weigh in at all?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm guessing the training is right. It's coming from the coalition, and I think we want to be really mindful about whatever we do, right? Because this is the beginning, and people are going to look at that with a, you know, is this something that they're going to want to engage in the future? And so being really clear about you know, what is it that we want to communicate, and then searching for a training to that effect, I think is really important. And it's not, Tori mentioned that there was also a webinar on vaping. I mean, all of those are great ideas, but just, it's kind of like, you never get the second chance to make a first impression, right? So we want to be really careful about whatever the first few trainings are, because people will either come back based on their experience or not come back based on that experience. And so that's just kind of what rang true to me. And then the only other thing I would say is that I could be totally off base, but just taking taking into consideration in the last several years that I've been a part of Lakewood, I have not known any information to go out around cannabis or vaping or any of those substances. And so again, just thinking this is going to be new information or a new openness, transparency on these topics with our community. So just making sure again that it's a starting point and that we're mindful that that information has not been shared. And to your point, Ryan, I think it might be, right, and who your audience is very important, because it might be a small group is warranted, but it also might just be parents who have kids in middle school or going into middle school or high school, and they are just like, they want to get it on their radar, like what's going on out there in regards to this. So just I haven't seen the webinar and that sort of thing, but just thinking we want to be super careful about what is our intent, who is our audience, and what is the right thing to go out.
Yeah, that's all great. I think that falls in line too with what you were saying, Erin. Like, we want to be picky at the beginning because this will be a first, like you're very right. This will be our first impression with a lot of folks. And the healthcare authority is going to say yay or nay on a lot of the things that we do. But we get some authority to do that as well. So Tori, you had your hand up. Do you want to jump in?
So Amy, your comments really made me think and like reflect on the webinar. And I think it is going to be like further down the line kind of webinar. I don't think it's something that's powerful or impactful enough to be a first webinar, especially Amy, you mentioned, like this would be the first time to create that transparency about cannabis and vaping. And I think this does that in too forcefully a way. I think it's too much like, I don't know. Yeah, I think it would be too forceful for a first step towards transparency.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. And I think that it sounds like we kind of all agree that this is maybe something down the line. But Amy, it is good to know that you haven't seen information go out about marijuana or vaping. It feels like maybe to have a conversation with parents, it maybe needs to start as like, this is the general information. And then like, if there are more concerns, continue those conversations in maybe a webinar format or whatever. But that there needs to be more general information given out first.
And maybe I've missed it, right? But I'm just thinking, Patty could probably speak better than I can, but I have gotten the parent communication from the middle school and the high school the last few years. So just kind of from that perspective.
Yeah, and if any, it's minimal if you don't remember, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that speaks, I mean, I don't want to overemphasize, but that speaks to some of the community norming, right? Because if we're not talking about it, if we're not sending messaging out, it informs what maybe they're not being informed on. And so, but you're right on the nose there. I think we have to be really strategic with how we do that, because if we just start throwing pot's bad out into the world, we're either going to lose them or we're going to scare them, and neither of those things work. So we have to be really, really strategic in our prevention approach. So.
Well, I apologize that I'm, late to the party here. So I do have a question. Have we, or have you, since this is the first time I've been back for quite a long time, have we talked about maybe just having an open house type of thing and doing food and getting to know your neighbor, doing an introductory type meeting, and asking parents, what do you want to know about? What are you concerned about? Just having it more open so that the parents are also involved, that they can give us. We don't have to come up with all the ideas. Parents have a lot of questions on their own. And so, creating a platform for them to share what they need. What do you need? You need I think even parenting classes. I think there's a lot of parents that would be totally all about, how to navigate teenage years, how to navigate the whole things with drugs, transgender issues. I think there's a lot of a lot of things that parents, they just don't know, and they want to be educated. And I think that we could have a really, a dynamic coalition with the parents and get them involved. But have you guys talked about that? Just opening it up and having an open house type thing? I know, Scott, when we had the dinner type things that we had, we've done 2 of those, and there was a good turnout for those.
Mhm.
So I don't know if something
Yeah.
like that, but more on social issues and helping parents and support. If that was kind of the premise of getting everybody together, and then having an opportunity for them to talk to other people, brainstorm, maybe, these are the top 3 things that I would really like to know more about and would be committed to coming and attending. I don't know,
Yeah, and
have
I
you
think
guys
that's
talked
really
about that?
where this group's work could intersect with our equity team's work, because that's what we're thinking about right now. So, yeah. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think that everything you're saying is stuff that we've heard, but we have been hearing, so it's good to hear it again. And I think, and we haven't strictly decided on doing an open house or some sort of town hall format, and really listening to the parents. But Ryan, I feel like that is something that can certainly come next. In our events that we've been doing as Link Northwest, we're starting to put out some community information about the coalition and who we are and that we're here and around. But yeah, Ryan.
Yeah, and I think zeroing in on the coalition specific issues is a big part of kind of what's next. As an agency, Link is kind of set up to do this family resource model and to create lots of different support services. The coalition is funded to provide substance use prevention intervention resources, right? So being able to bring those resources to bear now and to open up the conversation. And in fact, it's funny because on the agenda, the next thing is what are our community needs and listening. And so Patty, you just kind of hit it right on the head, right? Like we can't proceed forward for them without them, right? We have to know what the community need is. We have to know what parents are experiencing. And I think my challenge in that has been from the get-go here that COVID-19 shuts down every freaking party I want to throw, right? Every time I want to get somebody together, somebody's sick or we can't provide dinner or whatever else. And so I think we have to find some creative ways to gather pockets of the community, provide meals, and kind of start those small town hall conversations. And I think Aaron and I would probably, it might be good actually to form a little work group, because I think we'd be open to discussing, how do we do that in a way that's not eliminating, but kind of by invitation only, like how we're going to start with this group of 20 and just kind of build from there. Because I also feel like, and Patty, you're nodding your head in agreement before you even agree with me here. If we say, hey, everybody, we're going to host a town hall and we're going to provide dinner, 150 people are going to show up because they all just want to get out of their houses and have dinner together. If we just create that moment, everybody's going to show up. So anyway, being strategic, I think is important, but I agree. I think listening and hearing what families are saying they need is a key tactic to what we do going forward.
Just to interrupt for a second, I'm very sorry. I have to head out. I have to go to class. It was great to see you all, and I'll see you at the next meeting.
Great. Thanks for being here, Tori.
Thanks.
I think one more thing too is we have a greater number of Hispanic families, more so than we ever have before. And so we would also need to keep that in mind, whether or not we do 2 separate meetings and have one, that is Spanish focused, so that they know that they are part of the community and they're not ostracized or marginalized because of the language. We have a lot of families that are very, very concerned about their kids and the exposure that they're undergoing. Another question I have, I worked with this one mom, and she, really broke my heart because she's very, very concerned about her daughter. There are no support areas like Al-Anon that are easily located and for people who don't have transportation. And I don't know if there would be some kind of support group that we could even have on the side for middle school kids or high school kids that they could, come and talk and even do some kind of like an Al-Anon, AA type of format without it being official that way. The kids that I've talked to, and it's too bad that Tori had to leave because she has really been in contact with quite a few of these kids. And it's like they would go to those, but they can't get to them.
Yeah.
And so if we had something that was local, where that it would be safe for them, where they could open up and share their stories and their anxiety and their stress and have it be a support group. That would be very cool also.
We actually host the largest AA men's group in North Snohomish County here on Tuesday nights. And I thought the same thing for a decade. There's not really a solid Al-Anon or Alateen program in North Snohomish County. The one that was up here on the Smoky Point side dissolved. So I agree. I think having an Alateen program on the property would be incredible, and it would be close.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I'm the last person to know how to set any of that up, though. We should note that, though, Aaron, and talk to Tori and see what kind of research we could do, because I think a student support group focus would be really great. Yeah, that's great stuff, Patty. And to hear that the need is there is actually really, I mean, we know that, but when you hear it, it's different.
Yeah.
So. Okay. Well, with that, I think we're pretty close to the end of our meeting here. Was there anything, Aaron, that you wanted to kind of throw in here at the end? I don't have much else on my list.
No, yeah, I was right before you're going to speak. I was just going to say, is there anything else that anyone wants to say about needs in the community? Anything else that they're seeing that they want to highlight today? This will always be open every time we meet. So if there's more that comes up, that's okay. But
great. Well, with that, thank you all for your time today. We sure appreciate it. And we'll call this meeting adjourned for this time. We'll get the links out for this meeting, the recording of this, and then the notes, or the minutes, I guess is what they're called. And we'll see y'all again in a month, and hopefully we'll have some progress in between now and then for other programs.
Great.
Cool. Thanks again, y'all. Have a good rest of your day.
thanks.
Bye-bye.